Hi there. I want to talk to you about a new project I've started over at Patreon, and that is a recording of Joseph Hall's Mundus Alter et Idem, edited for school use with the original maps. Now, this text, Mundus Alter et Idem, sive terra australis ante hac semper incognita, autore Mercurio Britannico. And it's a precursor to Gulliver's Travels. It's quite an interesting little text, and it's accessible for somebody who is not a beginner in Latin, but somebody who is almost at the level of reading Caesar. This is the preface. Let's have a look at it. Some 10 years ago, he writes in, this is 1903, this book could scarcely have hoped for a welcome. In the meantime, matters have moved rapidly. Science is insisting more strongly on her claims, and the old type of classical training is doomed to disappear. This is not a misfortune, but a blessing in disguise. We have thrown aside much that is merely the debris of pedantry. The old Latin grammar, with its masses of rules and exceptions, has practically vanished, and no one will regret its disappearance. So, we are able to approach the literature almost at once, and teachers are casting about in every direction for easy and pleasant reading, with which to introduce their pupils to the language. Recently, the Scotch Education Department called attention to the dearth of such material, and suggested that portions even of the Vulgate might be read in the earliest stages. We believe that the present book will be of value in the movement. It is not meant for the very earliest stage of reading, but rather for the awkward period which immediately precedes the reading of difficult authors. That Caesar, at least, is unsuitable at this stage, we are convinced. He is too impersonal to be interesting, unless he can be read rapidly. Much less can a boy be expected so soon to appreciate the perfect form of Livy or Horace. He must first feel at home in the language. But we can rely on his sense of humour, and Hall's satire is brimful of wit and humour. Even if it were read slowly, interest would be maintained from first page to last. It fully deserves the high opinion of critics, who would place it beside, if not above, those other classics of the English Renaissance, Moore's Utopia and Bacon's Nova Atlantis. If it is less known, the reason is that it was never adequately translated into English by its author or by anyone else. The Latin, too, is excellent, much nearer to that of the best classical period than Florus and other writers of the Roman decadence, whom we see pressed into service. Not that this is a matter of supreme importance. Latin scholarship is like to be altogether emancipated soon from the long-continued tyranny of the purist. It is taking its true place as the handmaiden of history in the deepest and most liberal sense. In the servile imitation of a few authors, men have forgotten that there is a great Latin literature extending for 1600 years after Cicero's time. Yet, after all, our final goal is the appreciation of the great writers of the best age. They are our most sacred heritage from Rome. Only, let us read them for their own sake, and not without thought of imitation. So, we shall hesitate less to read all besides that is best in the language, or to make our pupils read it. To them, the later writers might even at first appeal more, and if they feel the fire of enthusiasm, we need have no fear that the study of Latin literature will lose its place. The writers of the Renaissance really knew Latin literature in this fuller sense. They sought also, it is true, to imitate the style of the best age, but it was because they still, at least for a time, believed that Latin would continue to be the literary language of Europe. Since then, the national literatures have grown to maturity. How much they have owed to the classical Renaissance, who can estimate? And we now think rather of Latin as the language which reveals to us a great past and its great thinkers, whom men of a latter day would be insensate indeed to put from them. For in that past alone can we free ourselves from the narrowing bondage of the present. Yet hitherto we have probably sought prematurely to bring our pupils to the great classical authors before their perfection of form or their ideas could be intelligible to them. Far better to begin with a book like the present, which, while full of the classical spirit, yet, from its subject, moves within the circle of familiar ideas. For it is modern vices and foibles which Hall attacks. We are fortunate, if we will but avail ourselves of it, in having such a work, to form, as Lucian does in Greek, a stepping stone to the great classical authors. And it is not merely a means to an end, it is itself a literary masterpiece. We would not suggest that the book should necessarily be the main reading of a class, and there are, after all, simple classical authors, small portions of whom could well be read at the same time, and might even be made the core of careful reading, e.g. Pliny's letters in a selection. A page of the Mundus, read fairly quickly by a master with a class, would be a welcome relief and, what is our main point, would lead pupils unconsciously deeper into the language. This being the purpose we have had in view, the notes given are of the briefest, but there is a complete vocabulary, and the index of proper names. Attempts have been made to explain all the ingenious names which Hall has invented, drawing upon every language of Europe. The text has been considerably curtailed. For this there are several reasons, which will be evident to those who have read the complete work. In particular, several passages have been omitted, which might cause offence to Roman Catholic readers. February 1908. So that's the introduction to the book. And I am doing a recording of it, the first recording of this book, I think, that's ever been made and published. And the first part of that is now available on Patreon, just the introduction, and I'll be working on this over the next few days. Voilà, thanks a lot, and see you on Patreon. That's latinum.org.uk.